The night was heavy with silence, the kind that only the desert could hold. The moon hung low, silver light spilling over the dry earth where blood had already begun to darken the sand. Clara's trembling hands pressed against the cowboy's arm, her voice breaking through the stillness. "Please, don't pull it," she begged, eyes wide with fear. But Jake Carter, the kind of man who'd seen too much and trusted too little, had already made up his mind. The arrow buried deep in his shoulder burned like fire, and he knew that if he didn't act now, infection would take him before the sunrise. His jaw tightened, his breath came in ragged bursts, and despite her desperate plea, he gripped the shaft and pulled. For a moment, time stopped. The sound of it leaving his flesh was a whisper of pain and defiance. But what came out with it wasn't just blood, it was something colder, something that made his skin crawl. The arrow tip wasn't metal. It was bone. Clara stumbled back, horror etched across her dirt-streaked face. "Jake, that's not from any man." Her voice trembled as the firelight flickered across the strange carvings on the arrowhead. Jake's eyes narrowed, his heart pounding as a chill cut through the warmth of the flames. The stories had always been there, legends of the cursed lands west of Dry Creek, where men vanished and the earth itself whispered warnings. He'd laughed them off once. Not anymore. The air grew still, the coyotes went silent, and even the fire seemed to draw back in fear. Then came the sound, a low hum like something alive beneath the soil. Jake staggered, clutching his wound as shadows moved at the edge of the light. Not walking, but gliding. Clara reached for him, tears streaking through the dirt on her cheeks. "We shouldn't have come here," she whispered. "This land doesn't forgive." Jake looked at her, the strength fading from his eyes. "Then we make it forgive," he said, loading his revolver with trembling hands. He wasn't a man who believed in curses, but he believed in one thing, never leaving someone behind. The desert wind picked up, carrying with it the echo of something ancient, something watching, and as Jake stood, blood dripping from his arm, he knew this night would either break him or make him legend. The fire crackled weakly, throwing flickers of orange light against the weathered faces of Jake and Clara. The night had grown colder, unnaturally cold. The desert air, usually dry and sharp, now carried a dampness that didn't belong. Jake leaned back against the wooden frame of the cot they had dragged from the wagon, sweat glistening on his forehead. His breathing was ragged, and his shoulder burned like molten iron. The wound wouldn't stop bleeding. Clara knelt beside him, pressing torn fabric against the gash. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. This was something deeper, something clawing at her soul. "I told you not to pull it," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "You don't understand, Jake. That arrow wasn't meant to kill you. It was meant to bind you." Jake's eyes flickered open, confusion mixing with exhaustion. "Bind me to what?" His words were gravelly, each one scraped out from the pain gnawing through his body. Clara hesitated. The fire popped, sending a spark into the darkness. "My father used to talk about this place," she said, her gaze distant. "He said the land west of Dry Creek wasn't ours to take. The Apache called it the land that breathes. They said when blood touches its soil, it wakes something that remembers." Jake tried to laugh, but the sound died in his throat. "I've fought bandits, wolves, even the army once. But curses?" He shook his head. "I don't believe in stories, Clara." But even as he spoke, the ground beneath them trembled softly, like the heartbeat of something buried deep. The horses tied outside whinnied and kicked, their reins snapping as they bolted into the dark. Clara's head shot up. "It's awake," she said. Jake reached for his revolver, his hand slick with blood. The familiar weight steadied him. "Then let it come." The wind howled through the cracks of the cabin, carrying with it whispers, soft, fragmented words in a language neither of them understood. Clara's eyes filled with terror as the shadows on the walls began to move, twisting and bending like smoke. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling. "Look at the arrowhead again." Jake turned it over in his hand. The carvings glowed faintly, pulsing like veins. The bone seemed alive, as though something inside it was breathing. And then, from the dark corners of the cabin, shapes began to take form. They weren't men, not quite. They had faces, blurred, hollow, mouths open in silent screams. Jake raised his gun. "Stay behind me." One of the figures moved closer, its presence pressing against the air like weight. "Blood calls blood," it hissed. Jake fired, the gunshot echoing through the desert night. The bullet tore through the shadow, but it didn't fall. It only split, forming two. Clara screamed, "Jake, stop! You can't kill what's already gone." He turned toward her, desperate. "Then tell me what the hell I'm supposed to do." Clara's eyes darted to the arrowhead. The curse began with blood. It must end with blood. But not yours and mine. Jake froze. "Don't you dare say that." She stood, tears cutting lines through the dust on her cheeks. "I'm the reason we're here. My father stole this land. He thought the old legends were just talk. But when he died, I found his journal. He wrote that one day the land would reclaim what it lost. The shadows crept closer, circling them like wolves." Jake's heart pounded in his chest. "You're not giving yourself up for me," he growled. Clara looked at him, her eyes soft but determined. "You've spent your whole life saving people who didn't deserve it. Jake, maybe it's time someone saved you."